Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, people of Earth. Welcome to the fucking news with me, Deke Jackson, on Saturday and Sunday, the 2nd and 3rd of March. Democracy's under threat. I don't know if you've heard that. It's a bit of a theme going on both in America and Britain at the moment. Democracy is under threat. In Britain, democracy is under threat because the people of Rochdale voted for somebody other than Labour and Conservatives. I thought that was the idea of democracy. I thought the very idea of democracy was, at an election, you vote for who you want. But apparently, that's a threat to democracy, according to Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, who hasn't actually been elected. Is the irony of that lost on anybody? A man who was coronated by factions within the Conservative Party, not elected by the people of Britain, not elected by the membership of the Conservative Party, having an emergency fucking broadcast outside 10 Downing Street to tell us that democracy's under threat because people actually voted for somebody he doesn't like in a free and fair election. Wait a minute, I'm confused as to what exactly the threat to democracy is. Is it a former Goldman Sachs banker who put 3 Jews in the cabinet and is currently supporting the fucking genocide of women and children in Gaza? Or is it a guy who's against that being elected overwhelmingly in a record-breaking swing from major political parties to his campaign? I'm struggling to see which way the threat to democracy is leaning there. Likewise, Joe Biden says Donald Trump is a threat to democracy because he keeps sending bombs to the Israelis. Oh no, sorry. It's Biden who keeps sending bombs to the Israelis. And it's Donald Trump who, while he was president, didn't bomb anybody. That's right. Donald Trump, while he was president, didn't bomb anybody. Now, I think Donald Trump's a wazzock. So, don't get me wrong, but I don't think there's a threat to democracy in America or Britain because people are lining up behind candidates they want to vote for. That's surely what democracy is. Whereas what democracy isn't is people exploiting the idea of extremism to try and leverage you to vote for them. Now, there are some pretty unpleasant people vote for George Galloway and for Donald Trump, but there are some very pleasant people who vote for them as well. In fact, the overwhelming majority of the people of Britain want Israel to stop bombing children in Gaza. Not because they're fucking Hamas supporters, but because they're human. And I'm with them. I am with them. I would like to see women and children not being blown up every night by bombs made in the West and shipped to a virtually totalitarian religious state so that they can claim some sort of fucking... Do you know what I think the threat to democracy is? I think there is a threat to democracy, right? It's total fucking morons voting for cocksucking spanners. That's what I think a threat to democracy is. Total fucking morons voting for cocksucking spanners. In fact, I'll say this. If you vote for anybody who has a religion, you're a fucking moron. And they are a cocksucking spanner. So Joe Biden kissing the Pope's ring, Benjamin Netanyahu being one of God's chosen people, these people are cocksucking spanners. And the people who vote for them, Rishi Sunak, I believe he's some sort of strange Hindu pantheon religion. But in my view, you're a moron. Should you ever vote for him? Not that anybody has. Nobody voted for him to be Prime Minister. So at the moment, there's a deficit of cocksucking morons on Rishi Sunak's side. But, Anyway, let's put aside the threat to democracy and do the fucking news. Starmer tells the UK... after the Rochdale by-election, that he's sorry, he's a spineless cunt. Sorry. He's sorry about George Galloway getting elected by a massive majority and Labour suffering a huge swing from their safe seat to Galloway. He's sorry about that because he is a spineless cunt and he can't support a ceasefire because he's a lick-spittle wazzock. He really is. Keir Starmer doesn't have a view about anything except to say we are a very moderate and appealing party. We are very moderate. We won't say anything to put anybody off voting for us until after the election, in which case we'll come out and we will drown kittens on television on a daily basis. But until then, we're very, very electable and we're very moderate. But once we get elected, we shall take all your money off you and give it to the Communist Party. Here's an interesting story. I'll try and get my head in the way of the sun there. It makes me look like Mary or Jesus. Oh. So, white supremacist jailed for race hate. This is an interesting story, right? So, we'll do it like that. Okay. I find this an interesting story. Far-right activists have been jailed for 2 years. Samuel Malia was found guilty of stirring up racial hatred by running a library of downloadable white supremacist stickers. He was part of an anonymous group responsible for anti-immigration stickering from 2019 to 2021. I thought being anti-immigration was the government's policy. I'm struggling with how that's white supremacy because of the following. Priti Patel, who's not white, called for like virtually the sinking of boats in the Channel to stop these immigrants coming here. Is that white supremacy? Rishi Sunak is campaigning to get elected on the basis of stopping immigrants coming here. Is that far-right extremism? And Suella Braverman, who recently, lost her job, advocated leaving the human rights, the European human rights thing, so we could do nasty things to immigrants. Is that white supremacy? I'm confused because what seems to get you put in jail for expressing appears to be the policy of the government, none of whom are white. Isn't that odd? I mean, I find that tickles my funny bone in some strange way. Ollie Alexander, right? Here's an interesting story. Ollie Alexander, who's an advocate of LGBTQ rights and himself some sort of unicorn, he's under fire because he is Britain's entry to the Eurovision Song Contest. I mean, he would be, wouldn't he? He, she, it, whatever. Ollie, I don't know what your pronoun is. Mine's sexy as fuck. But I don't know what yours is. However, Alexander's come under fire since it emerged. He signed a letter calling Israel an apartheid regime. It is the Jewish state of Israel, which would seem to suggest that if you're not Jewish, somehow you're not part of that state. I mean, I would say that's a sort of de facto apartheid. And condemning Zionist propaganda. Isn't that like is he not free to condemn what he sees as propaganda from either, the Catholic Church, the Republican Party, the Tory Party? Like, are we no longer free to have these thoughts? I don't like propaganda. Oh, that's naughty of you. Now, the people condemning him are the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, because, of course, it is, of course, anti-Semitic for you not to like Jews. That's right. If you don't like Jews, you are anti-Semitic. I hope you know that and understand that, right? Let's just get that clear. Let's get that right out there. If you don't like Jews, who are, of course, lovely people and God's chosen people, you are anti-Semitic. If you don't like the actions of the Israeli government, you're anti-Semitic. If you don't like Zionist propaganda, you're anti-Semitic. Strangely, the BBC, who are part of the management and organisation behind the Eurovision Song Contest, have decided not to throw him out for his anti-Semitic views. Although obviously Sir Keir Starmer wouldn't have him as a candidate in the Rochdale by-election. So, blah, blah, blah. Because, what do they say? Blah, blah. Because he's not going to say anything. At the Eurovision, he's not going to say anything. He's said, I'm not going to say anything about Gaza at the Eurovision Song Contest. And also the BBC has said, we've actually received thousands of calls to ban Israel from the competition. Whereas nobody's asked for Ollie to be removed from the competition. Apart from the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism. They're the only people who want Ollie out of the Eurovision Song Contest. But thousands of people want Israel out of the Eurovision Song Contest. Funny that. Ollie, my advice to you is just be gay. We're letting you be gay, right? We're letting you be gay. That should be good enough for you. Now shut the fuck up and pay interest to your banking family so they can fuck you in the assets. That's my advice to everybody. Shut the fuck up about the Jews, right? Pay the interest on your credit card. Go back to sleep. Here's a headline, right? Just before I do this headline, I should like to inform you of a few facts. In Britain, the head of the army, the Minister of Defence, is Jewish. The head of the intelligence service, that's the people who spy on everybody, including domestic spying, the interception of phone calls, emails, and the undercover operations to infiltrate every kind of opposition group, from Stephen Lawrence's mother to Extinction Rebellion. The head of the intelligence security services is Jewish. The head of culture, media and sport is Jewish. And Rishi Sunak formerly was a partner in a giant global Jewish bank, right? Just so we know these facts, right? So Rishi Sunak says, Islamist extremists and the far right are trying to tear us apart in an emergency broadcast about the threat to democracy from George Galloway winning Rochdale. But I wonder how you would feel about me just changing that headline to say, Jewish extremists and the far left are trying to fuck us up, warns Deek. That is to say that this idea about anti-Semitism being anything that you don't like about Israel, and also, like, you know, your children should hear about how to have anal sex at the age of 5, and that's fine, and you're a fucking gammon if you don't like that. That's the kind of thing that I think is going on. Personally, that's what I think is going on. The far left. Left-wing used to be... I used to be left-wing. I campaigned to make homosexuality legal and to get rid of the restrictions on teaching sexuality in schools. So don't give me any of your pish about me. But what I'm not for is this idea that you're free because you can do shit to your genitals while we fuck the world over and screw you. You're not free. It's not enough, right? It's not enough that I could do what I want with my genitals anyway, right? And so could you. It's not enough to say, look at all you people, you're free. Look how much you can talk about being gay and binary, this and that. You're free. We're not free. We're owned like fucking livestock. And we're lied to like a cohort of Pinocchios. A cohort of fascist Pinocchios jackbooting over reality. While we mumble into our muesli and fucking tofu and avocado on toast. Engaging with the politics of fear will not work, says Isabel Hardman on this page. On the other page, Ayesha Hazariki says, Galloway will peddle division in his oratory in the Houses of Commons. He will bring fear to Jewish communities. I mean, you know, from one page to the other, I'd have a word with the editor if I didn't think he was a cocksucking spanner. I really would. I mean, you can't have it both ways. Engaging with the politics of fear will not work. Meanwhile, the Jewish community is afraid of George Galloway because he doesn't like Israel. It's odd, that, isn't it? Meanwhile, in other news, it's hard to find other news that isn't, you know, about Gaza at the moment. But I think we'll come to that. But, you know, it'll be in small print. Okay, David Cameron and international leaders call for an urgent inquiry into the convoy deaths in Gaza, where 120 people were killed, machine-gunned to death by Israeli tanks who felt they were threatened. Can you imagine being in a tank and feeling threatened by, like, starving skinny people climbing over a truck 100 meters away? They must have been really on edge, those people, like, you know, really trigger fucking happy. Anyway, he's calling for an urgent inquiry. I can save us the time, the trouble and the budget that it'll take to man that inquiry. They're dead. They are. They're totally dead. They're probably already buried, as is the way with Muslim religion. So, you know, I can save us time and money there. They're dead. Those dead people, they are dead. There you go. Angela Rayner, who it would appear has done something dodgy by buying a former council house that maybe wasn't her main residence and then selling it and making 50 grand. She's facing questions over the sale of this council tax, this council house, and tax that she paid on the profits thereof, because she might just be another trough-snorting piggy lining her own pockets while she espouses virtues that she doesn't actually live up to. Just saying, Angela. Angela, you might just be another lying, cock-sucking, trough-snorting pig with your nose buried in the public purse while you wiggle your ass and pretend that you're some sort of virtuous person. Whereas, in fact, like as all politicians are, you're just a lying scumbag. Here's a nice piece of journalistic euphemism. King's relative died from head wound. A head wound? How did he get that? Did he fall over putting his trousers on? Perhaps he was kicked by a horse as he mounted it in a game of polo. No. If you read the story, he died from a traumatic head wound. La-di-da. He ate lunch with his parents and then went outdoors to a locked-out building where he died from a catastrophic head injury. A gun was present. A gun was present, says the journalist, Brendan McFadden. A gun was present, says Brendan McFadden. This is like saying he died from a lack of life. King's relative died from lack of life. Why can't they say he shot himself in the head? He plainly shot himself in the head. It's like saying he died from a surfeit of holes in his head. Yes, he did die from a surfeit of a hole in his head, which got there because he blew his head off with a shotgun. He had lunch with his parents, then he wandered out to the barn and blew his head off. I'd like to know, wouldn't you like to be a fly on the wall in that living room where they say, you're a notorious cocaine addict and we've written you out of the will. Daddy, no. Mummy, no. I'd like to be a fly on the wall in that room. Blah, blah, blah. Putin, Navalny, funeral, blah, blah, blah. World leaders seek truth about Israeli killing. They're dead. Just like, do you know, these world leaders, right? Just imagine what it's like to be a world leader, you know, like Rishi Sunak, Joe Biden, and, you know, people like that, and have a multi-billion-dollar spy and intelligence community working for you at your fingertips, basically at your behest, working on your behalf to tell your country, which you're the leader of, the shit that's going down, and you need a fucking inquiry, right? I'd fucking save the taxpayer the money. If your fucking intelligence services can't tell you those people at the aid convoy are dead and Israelis shot them, sack all your fucking spies. Get rid of all that expensive surveillance equipment because it's obviously fucking useless, isn't it? We need to have we're seeking the truth. We need to have an inquiry to find out what happened to these people. They're dead. Israel killed them. You know, I mean, you're not even paying me, right? You should give me money to tell you that shit, you know, instead of paying your intelligence. So here's some real news. Nothing to see here. Hottest February in England and Wales on record. Not only was it hot, but it was also wet. So it was warm and wet, which means that farmers couldn't sow their fields, which means that food will be delayed and or more expensive. Trees bloom early in unseasonably warm weather, and that sort of thing. That sort of thing. I know a lot of you don't believe in the climate. The fucking news isn't really exclusively about the climate. But that's the real news. The real news, if you want some fear-mongering, I'm going to monger some fear for you right now. The party's over, all right? The party's fucking over. Enjoy. Hey. The party's over. You're fucked. We're fucked. It's all fucked. Smoke them while you got them. Last year, around April, it was reported widely on all major news outlets that the temperature of the world's oceans had reached a record-breaking, never-before-seen temperature, right? And then that story disappeared from the news. So would you believe that every month since then, the temperature got higher and broke records every single day since then, to this day, the temperature has gone on breaking records. We're already breaking last year's record. Already last year's international news, the oceans are really hot. They're even hotter. And they're getting hotter. The graph is going up. Nothing to see here. Move along. The party's over. You're fucked. It's all over. Industrial consumerism, Buzz Lightyear, Happy Meal toys. Enjoy. Here's a story from The Sun about migration to the UK. Losing control of our borders has been a grave failure. Blah, 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 blah. Where are the new homes and schools and hospitals for millions of people that will be added to our population? Does any Westminster leader care about how this immigration affects ordinary people? Is nobody going to arrest them as being white supremacists and far-right extremists, like the people with the anti-immigration stickers? I'm confused by this seeming double standard. The government doesn't like immigrants. The government has policies against immigrants. Newspapers rail against immigration. And yet, people who put stickers up saying, I don't like immigration, are going to jail. What the fuck? I don't get it. I mean, one thing or the other. Either we agree that being anti-immigration is bad and criminal and the government should shut the fuck up and let people land here all day and all night on boats from wherever the fuck they want, or people who are anti-immigration shouldn't be arrested and sent to jail. I'm going to read you something from Patrick Cockburn. Now, occasionally I like what Patrick Cockburn says, which is odd because I almost never like anything anybody else says. But here we go. The hatred born out of the Israel-Palestine conflict and ongoing destruction of Gaza is being deliberately injected into politics by the government. As Israeli forces fire on starving Palestinians seeking food and kill 112 people, Rishi Sunak describes overwhelmingly peaceful marches calling for a ceasefire as a mob. I mean, I take you back to the white supremacist far-right extremists who are anti-immigration. You know, these are a different group of people with a different point of view, but the same kind of leveraged hate speech, thought crime is being brought against them. He refuses to denounce Lee Anderson's claim that Islamic extremists have taken control of London. The landslide victory of George Galloway in Rochdale, where he campaigned exclusively on the issue of Gaza, shows how this slaughter of people has moved to the centre of British politics. Tory and Labour political establishments may be unmoved by watching a massacre on their TV screens, but the public is demonstrably horrified by what they see. Galloway's majority shows it was not just Muslims who voted for him. That's right, Labour and Conservative. We don't like what Israel is doing. That doesn't mean we don't like Israelis. This is like claiming that during the Vietnam War, all the people who campaigned against the Vietnam War hated Americans. It is exactly the same lie, smear, and police and dog whistling. It's exactly the same. Oh, people are campaigning against the Vietnam War. They hate America. They hate Americans. Really? We don't just hate baby killers. No, you can't just hate baby killers. No. You've got to be anti-Semitic, yeah? Fuck you, you fucking cocksucking spanners. And anyone who votes for these cocksucking spanners, I mean it. If you vote for anyone in a mainstream political party, you are a fucking moron. You really are. Because they are cocksucking spanners. Every goddamn motherfucking one of them. Biggest wildfire in American history hits Texas. Nothing to see here. Don't worry about the climate. P.S. We're fucked. It's all over. You're doomed. Okay. Shh, I didn't tell you. All right. There you go. Biggest wildfire in America ever in Texas. Enjoy. Have another coffee. Light up, boys and girls. Light up. Enjoy it while you can. You know, love the one you're with, all that jazz. I don't really care if you believe that shit or not, because it happens to be true. So it doesn't matter whether you believe it or not. There we go. I think that's the fucking news. So there you go. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, the planet's fucked. It's your fault and it's getting worse. Tomorrow will be worse than today. And today is the best day since yesterday. Have fun.